Drummers against implied timekeeping, Richard D. Albus. A rant and some commentary. I want to talk a little bit about the band King Crimson. I had seen on Facebook, the King Crimson members channel, a nice discussion regarding the band, and a lot of great ideas and comments were being made between a lot of people. And it kind of got me thinking, I wanted to talk to those of you who come in on my channel to know a few things about King Crimson. Now, as a disclaimer, this is my opinion, of course, so I ask those of you looking in, please bear with me, always. King Crimson is, to this day, my favorite band, I think, or one of them, no question about it. Their influence has just always inspired me, and to this day, as I say, I look back on them and I just love the band. But as an interesting thing that I want to share with those of you who visit on my channel, I was 12 years old when King Crimson's first album came out, In the Court of the Crimson King. It had that very unusual face painted on it. No one had ever seen anything like that before. I don't even think since. It's just a very unusual cover with the throat sticking out and the teeth. And it was just shocking. But a fellow who lived up the street from me, Gary D'Agostino, his older sister, a teenager or something, bought the record. And I heard it downstairs while she was playing it upstairs. And it captured my ear very quickly when I was listening to it, because I had already been playing drums for a year. And I found it to be interesting. So Gary was a bit crazy, but after a while I'd go over the house because I could ask to have Gary, or if his sister was home, to put the record on, and once in a while she would, amongst other things. So I just remember that first album. I don't know what the heck was going on. It just seemed very strange to a 12-year-old, but I had been playing and studying drums for a year, pretty intensively. Anyway, I look back on those years, and then we move forward 50 plus years to this day. And there again, as I say, I'm listening and to King Crimson to this day, and I enjoy much of their material. But what I want to stress to those of you who come here, King Crimson is that first album alone. And I did post that onto the channel for those fans. And what I mean by that is anything after the first album was Robert Fripp's vision of King Crimson. He would always get great musicians to join him, obviously Bill Bruford and Adrian Belew, and just so many, Tony Levin. To this day, he gets the finest musicians, but it's his vision of King Crimson. But King Crimson is the first album alone, In the Court of the Crimson King, because it was the only time Fripp, Greg Lake, Michael Gillies or Giles, Ian McDonald, and of course Peter Sinfield as the lyricist, he was with his co-creative equals. Because obviously Greg Lake went on to do Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and Michael Giles, Gillies, depending on how you pronounce it, went on to do some monumental solo records with so many people. And this is something that has to be looked at in this context. This is why that first album is so important. I'm of the thinking, I think it might be the greatest record ever made, in my opinion, when you consider all the other great records of the era. Because it was just, when it came out, it was received, but not until about 2, 3, 4, 5, as time went on. Then, as Fripp was doing the other records with Bruford and the other guys, John Wetton comes to mind, then people started to look back on that first record and realized what a movement was created. In fact, a lot of other bands like Genesis and Gentle Giant and Yes and the various other progressive bands owe a lot to King Crimson, because King Crimson was an experimental band. I think that Greg Lake mentioned they had no idea that they would have this kind of impact 40 years, 50 years, 100 years from now when they did that original album. So just know that. That's the general thing I wanted to stress. King Crimson is the first album alone. All the subsequent albums are Robert Fripp's a vision of King Crimson, and hats off to him. I love Robert Fripp. I've seen him in other contexts, the crafty guitarists. My God, I saw that, and I saw him solo, which wasn't very good on 2 occasions. But he has done something with King Crimson, and I just thank him for that always. All right? That I had to get out of the way. Now, there are a lot of great videos, and I've done 1 or 2 of them. How to get the best groove, how to improve your groove, what to do to get a better groove. And some have 5 steps, some have 10 steps, some have 1, whatever. But for those of you who are visiting my channel for the first time, I want to welcome you. And I have 300 and plus videos. I teach in the open-handed position, which means if you're right-handed, your left hand is the timekeeper. If you're left-handed, it's the opposite. But to answer the question, the fastest and best way to improve your groove is to play in the open-handed position. If you are not, you are to make the changeover. Because when you're using your right hand to cross over and develop your groove, whenever I see these guys doing it, and that includes a lot of them, they're developing the right to get that groove. And then hopefully the other 3 limbs come into play, is the thinking, right? If my right hand is rock solid, the other limbs are going to fall into play. That's the background idea. And I've had this too for 52 years of playing. Or I guess my first 40 years of playing. 40 years of consistent playing without stopping and practicing every day, all the time. That is not accurate. Your groove improves if your weak side is the timekeeper, because the right is going to come in much better, much quicker. So the quickest way to get your groove together, in my view, is to move your hands. Have your left hand play quarters, eighths, and syncopated patterns. Have your right hand come whacking down on the snare. That's the quickest way. Because if you go back and do crossover and then go to open-handed position, you'll see something's different right away. Something's different, no argument. Eventually you'll see it's much better. All right, that's my view on the basis of my channel. If I have to just pinpoint what I got to get those of you who are looking on my channel. Because I know these other guys have 10 times more subscribers, hits, production, whatever they have. Hats off to them. But that's not why I'm here. I started the channel 7.5 years ago for one reason, is to get drummers who are coming to visit here. The one thing to improve your groove, change your hand position. Go to open-handed position. If you are right-handed, left hand goes on the hi-hat. If you are left-handed, right hand goes on the hi-hat. All right? Now, if you are a lefty and you're playing on a right-handed drum set, you might want to change over. I don't know. This depends. I've had students that are true lefties. They're open-handed position, left foot on the pedal. I have right-handed fellows that are open-handed position, right foot on the pedal. It depends. I don't like to mess around with it, but open-handed position is the name of the game and the quickest way to get a better groove quicker. All right? Go through my catalog and know that. Now, I'd be very curious, how you're doing and what you're up to. And there'll obviously be some people who will fight this idea and maybe say, well, what about Benny Greb or Vinny or Dave Weckl or Gad or something like that? And I would say to them, their groove would be better if they would just try open-handed position. If I had Dave Weckl here, I'd be all excited, no question. And I'd want a drum lesson from Dave Weckl. I'd want him to show me some of his ideas. But I would also tell Dave, he's a little older than I am. I think David is 64 to my 62. I would still tell him about open-handed position and have him try it and see what he thought. All right? He would sound better on a groove, open-handed, guaranteed. Now, there are exceptions, because if the tempo is too fast, then things change. Because if you're not bringing a remote hi-hat, you might have to cross over, and I do it too. I cross over if it lends itself to high speed or a punk song and I'm singing in the cover band. But if I'm doing a recording, my remote hi-hat is there, and I have the closed hi-hat. And this is what I want to stress to younger drummers. You have a double bass kit or a single bass kit using a double pedal. Please, if you can, see things in terms of right and left. The left is the lead to get that groove. Then the right hand comes whacking down much better. Ghost notes, anything you want, I think, is much better this way. Now, if you have particular questions, feel free to ask me. And that's why I'm here. I welcome the questions, because that's what I think you expect of me. All right? As long as I tell you why and qualify it, as I would say, then it's okay, as best I can. Like I said, I have over 300 videos now, and I'm covering a lot of ground after all this time. But that's what I'm here for. And if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel, because your subscription is kind of the affirmation of what I'm trying to teach those of you who are coming over here. All right? So thanks for that always. Subscribing is just a great thing to know, that I'm reaching through the camera to those of you who are really into playing drums. And this is my idea. If you're not playing open-handed position and you're crossing over, I want you to stop that immediately. And of course, play to records, click tracks, definitely, but do it open-handed. Then go back to the cross. If you say that, well, the cross is still better, contact me. I would love to talk to you. I would love to talk to you, because I'd make you test again and again. And I'd be very surprised if you said you've been doing it for years and you went back to the crossover to get the better groove. Very surprised. All right? Good luck to all of you. And let me know what you think. Again, I'm not looking to get into an argument about King Crimson. I just have to, for my channel, for those of you who are coming here, you got to know this. And thank you, Gary DiAugustino's sister, Janice, for turning me on to King Crimson at 12 years old. I wouldn't have been able to know those things. My mother wasn't going to buy me that kind of record at 12. So it's just great to think about it now, after all these years, to tell those of you who are within earshot of what I'm thinking now. All right? My best to all of you, and I look forward to seeing what you think.